What up YouTube? How are we feeling today? Hope you're doing great, hope you're doing fantastic. Back with another Division 2 video and back with another TU16 build. And man, this is a straight up banger. This is my Lady Picaro build and it just shreds through everything. This combination of the new holster, the Picaro's holster from the Brazos, the Arquebus new brand set is in the game. And it is a straight up banger. And even though we see some changes coming to TU16 and this build is even getting more powerful into the future, you definitely need to check it out. This is a great synergy between the survivability and damage output, just running and gunning through the game, being fast over the full map. This is so much fun to play with. As you see in the background, I will show you a few minutes of gameplay of me shredding through Lincoln Memorial, and then we're gonna dive right into the build, explaining everything and why this synergy is so good. And as you can hear and as you can see, we are using the new brand set Umbra initiative as well. And man, this new gear set is so versatile. You can use it on so many different builds. And today, it's a time for my Lady Picaro's build. So definitely dive in, let me know what you think down in the comments. And again, we made this build live on Twitch. We made it with the community, testing out a few things, and this is just a straight up banger. But enough intro, I will leave you with a little bit of gameplay and then diving into the build. Enjoy!
Immediate medical assistance needed.
All clear.
Hostile engaged. You're not going anywhere. How's that feel? team from the campus has taken position inside the...
Starting with my specialization as usual, we're using a gunner specialization. Why? Because we're gaining an extra 10% armor on kill whenever we take somebody out. That helps the survivability of this build a lot. Then next to that we have our third reload is 50% faster. And of course, as you saw in the gameplay, we are using the Banshee pulse. And then all the mods that come with the Banshee pulse are only linked to the gunner specialization. And this is why we are using the gunner specialization. And of course, don't forget to stack into SMG damage and all the other weapons that you are using. So let's jump over to the weapons. Starting with my main weapon, and you probably saw that in the gameplay already, but this is the Lady Death. The Lady Death has a base damage of 104.3k, but when the memento kicks in, we're getting that extra 30% weapon damage over that 5 minutes. Not to speak of the short range buff when we pick up those memento stacks that can get up to that 120 to 125k. It boosts it up a lot. We have an RPM of 900, but again, this is base. We can get up to that 1100 RPM because of this whole build that we are running. Core attribute SMG, critical hit, and of course then damage to armor, and we're doing it for the breathe free. Just running around the map using that extra 20% movement speed whenever we take somebody out. And of course, in every single bullet in the magazine, we're gaining an extra 75 amplified damage. Then next to that, I used the lefty. Why the lefty? Because I didn't have it proficient yet. You can choose for whatever gun you like to go for and then get it to proficiency. Same as for your handgun, just choose a handgun that you do not have proficient yet. Then this is a quick and easy and cheap way to get the proficiency levels up. You only have to play with it. You can take a few enemies out, but it isn't necessary. This is just an easy way without farming for handguns and or of course donating materials. But let's jump over to the build. And this is the build, guys. Yes, we're using the new Picaro's holster. We're using 4 pieces of the new Umbra initiative gear set and then the memento. Why are we using the Picaro's holster? Because this gives us that extra 20% weapon damage for now. And the attributes are 6% critical hit chance and 12% critical hit damage. Why do I say for now? Because with TU16.1, the next update coming to the game, the 20% weapon damage will change to 15% weapon damage, but will go down to your attributes. So you have one 15% weapon damage attribute, and then next to that you have another attribute. And that's gonna be the question, if it's gonna be 6% critical hit chance or 12% critical hit damage on this piece. But then the beautiful thing is we can change our core attribute to another weapon damage, boosting this up to 30% weapon damage. So this build will only get stronger in the future, guys, and this is a lot of fun to play with. We're getting a little 10% skill haste that of course helps our Banshee pulse out a little bit, but we're not really doing it for the skill haste. We're doing it for that perfect core, that 20% weapon damage. Then next to that, like I explained, we're using the memento. Everybody knows the memento. We're getting 3 core attributes with weapon damage, armor, and skill tier. The weapon damage, of course, boosts up our damage output. The armor gives us a little bit more survivability. We have an attribute on there or a mod on there of 12% critical hit damage. And we're doing it for the kill confirmed. Overall, we're doing it for the long-term buff, so that 5-minute buff, gaining that 30% weapon damage, 30% skill efficiency, and 3% armor regeneration. This helps out a lot with the damage boost and of course that survivability, and this only requires you to pick up 30 stacks, but that goes very, very fast, especially if you're playing solo. And then of course we have that short-term buff as well. If you pick up those trophies, you will get a short-term buff of 10 seconds, and because we're running around with a 6-core red build, we're gaining an extra 30% weapon damage every time we pick up those trophies. So in total, if your full memento is fully procced, you can gain up to 60% extra weapon damage every time that you pick up a trophy and then of course take everybody out. This is so freaking strong, and I think this is one of the best backpacks to use, especially in combination with the Umbra initiative. And then over to the Umbra initiative. For 2 pieces we're getting a 15% critical hit chance. For the 3 pieces we're getting a 30% reload speed, and this helps out a lot, especially if you're running and gunning. With an SMG it's already low on the reload speed, but now you gaining an extra 30% reload speed. Man, it's so freaking fast. But overall, we're doing it for the 4 pieces, of course, because we're getting 2 talents. From the shadows and into the light. From the shadows read, while in cover, gain 10 stacks per second up to that 50. But we are using the chest, so our stacks go up to that 100. Each stack will give 1% extra critical hit damage and 0.3% RPM. So we're gaining up to that 100% extra critical hit damage and 30% RPM. And that's why you hear and see the Lady Death shred through almost everything with just 1 clip. Only 32 bullets. And that 75% amplified damage comes in clutch. Then, of course, we have our second one. We have Into the Light. While out of cover and in combat, gain 10 stacks per second up to that 50. And each stack will give you 0.8% armor regeneration when it's consumed. So when you get hit, or when you wanna get that from the shadows proc back again, you dive in cover, you will get your health back, and of course boost up your RPM and your critical hit damage at the same time. This is such a great gear set to play around with. Of course, it's not the strongest gear set in the game, but still, this is so versatile. You can do so many different builds with it, and it is a lot of fun, especially in combination with the Memento, the Picaro's holster, and then, of course, Our Lady Death. Stacks consume 10 stacks per second and only in cover. So this gives you an extra damage output of that 100% critical hit damage and that 30% RPM. When you dive into cover to gain that extra stacks again, to stack up that extra critical hit damage and that extra RPM, you're healing yourself as well. This is just a great combination, especially with that Memento, because if you picked up all the stacks, you're gaining that 30 stacks, you're gaining an extra 3% armor regeneration as well. So every time you get hit and you dive into cover, you can almost always get up to that full armor again in the combination of Into the Light and then that 3% armor regeneration. This build, guys, is so freaking good. I went for weapon damage, critical hit damage, and critical hit damage mod on there, and I did exactly the same for all the other pieces. So weapon damage, critical hit damage, and a critical hit damage mod for my chest. And like I explained, the chest has From the Shadows, increases the max stacks from the shadows from 50 to 100, and stacks gain from 10 to 20. So you only have to be in cover for 5 seconds to get that full stacks again. And because we're running around a lot, because we're using the Lady Death, it only gets away for 1 stack per second. So you only have to dive in cover for 1 or 2 seconds to gain that full extra RPM and that full extra 100% critical hit damage. And this is so easy to get and that full stack or stay at that full stacks. I thought that would be a problem, but man, it is a lot of fun to play with. Then the same for my gloves, 15% weapon damage, 12% critical hit damage. And then again, for the knee pads, the same, weapon damage and critical hit damage. And man, you definitely need to try out this setup. This is a lot of fun. This Lady Picaro's build is so good. Then jumping over to my skills. For my first skill, I'm using Revive Hive, wider Revive Hive, because we are pretty squishy. Yes, we have our armor regeneration. Yes, we can heal up with Into the Light in combination with our Memento. But still, we're running around with only 1 armor core and then 6 red cores, so a revive hive definitely comes in handy. Although I didn't really need it all the time that I tested this out. And then of course the mods that I'm using 10% reviver armor, 5% range and 4.9% duration. Next to that, we are using our pulse and we are using the Banshee pulse. Because we're gaining an extra skill tier, this is up to tier 1. So the cooldown is 25 seconds, the duration is 12 seconds, the effect duration is 5 seconds, the radius is 37.5 meters and the cone angle is 22%. But because we're running around, because we are picking up every trophy from our memento, we're gaining that skill efficiency every time we pick up. So that 25 seconds cooldown isn't 25 seconds. You're running around picking up all those trophies, all those strong arms, and you will get your pulse back very, very quickly. And then next to that, of course, I chose for the 2 mods that come with the gunner specialization, that 15% radius and that 15% effect duration. But yeah guys, this is the overview of the build, and definitely try this out, because this can shred through almost everything. And then of course with the combination of the memento backpack with a 3% arm regeneration and that Into the Light from the Umbra initiative new gear set, you have a pretty good survivability as well, while we're running around with 6 core reds. But let's jump over to the stats. We have 60% critical hit chance, 146% critical hit damage, but don't forget, we're gaining an extra 100% from our chest from the Umbra initiative. So we're gaining 246% critical hit damage. And that's why we can shred through almost everything. Next to that, of course, we have our arm regeneration and we have everything else. When the memento kicks in, you're gaining around that 27k arm regeneration, and of course, like I explained, our weapon damage goes up to that 120 to 125 only from our long term. Then, of course, we're picking up all the trophies. You're gaining an extra 30% weapon damage. Man, this is just a banger. So let me know in the comments down below if you're using this build already. Are you using a few different things? We can, of course, use not the Picaro's holster and go for one of the best in slot pieces with the Contractor's gloves, or of course the Fox's prayers, but I wanted to do something different, and this new Picaro's holster is of course new added to TU16, and I wanted to test it out, and it does its job. So hit me up in the comments down below what you like about this build, what would you change around this build. But that's it. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit that subscribers button, and of course that notification bell. PurePrime out.